In this video, I'll solve an application of quadratic equations that relates to the Pythagorean theorem. We have that two cars leave an intersection at the same time, one heading north and the other heading west. So if you can think about that already, we have an intersection and one car is traveling north and the other is traveling west, which between the north and west directions we have a right angle. Sometime later, the cars are 100 miles apart, so that means at some point in the future, the distance between the two cars, which is the diagonal of that right triangle, is 100 miles. If the car heading west travels 20 miles farther than the car going north, how far does the car heading west travel? The unknowns are the distances the car travels, so if the one going north is x miles, then the one heading west is 20 miles more than that, which would be x plus 20. And so we have a right triangle, which means we can apply the Pythagorean theorem, which states that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are the legs of the right triangle. So in this situation, we would have that x squared plus the quantity x plus 20 squared is equal to 100 squared. Simplifying each of these exponential expressions, we get x squared plus, and then be careful with squaring the binomial. This is really x plus 20 times x plus 20. When we multiply it out, we will get x squared plus 40x plus 400, and then 100 squared is 10,000. When we combine like terms, x squared plus x squared is 2x squared plus 40x plus 400 equals 10,000. So notice that this is a quadratic equation. To solve it, we want to set one side equal to 0 by first subtracting 10,000 from each side. This gives us 2x squared plus 40x minus 9,600 is equal to 0. Now we can solve that in this form. I would suggest if you see that there's a common factor to factor it out or to divide each term by that. As long as it's a numerical value, you can divide by a number. So the common factor is 2. When we divide each term of the equation by 2, we get the equation x squared plus 20x minus 4,800 is equal to 0. So we have some options. We can try to see if this is factorable. We could use completing the square or the quadratic formula, which I'm going to do in this case. In applying the quadratic formula, we identify a to be 1, b is 20, and c is negative 4,800. The quadratic formula states that x is equal to the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Substituting the appropriate values, we get the opposite of 20, plus or minus the square root of 20 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4,800, and then that's all divided by 2 times 1. So simplifying this expression gives us negative 20 plus or minus the square root of 20 squared is 400, and then negative 4 times 1 times negative 4,800 is going to be plus 19,200, all divided by 2. So we get negative 20 plus or minus the square root of 19,600 inside the radical, divided by 2. Now, you would need to stop and see if the square root of 19,600 simplifies to be an integer. If not, this is where you would use your calculator and find out what the two decimal values are. But it actually turns out that the square root of 19,600 is 140. So this expression simplifies to be negative 20 plus or minus 140 divided by 2. So to find our values of x, we need to separate those into the two values. One of those is negative 20 plus 140 over 2. And I'm running out of room on the screen, so I'm going to come up here. So x is negative 20 plus 140 divided by 2, which is really 120 divided by 2, or 60. And then the other possible solution is negative 20 minus 140 divided by 2. But that number is negative 160 divided by 2, or negative 80. But a distance of negative 80 doesn't make sense in this context. So the value of x is 60. Now it says, how far does a car heading west travel? So 60 miles is the distance of the car heading north. The car heading west is 60 plus 20, which would be 80 miles.